welcome back to another episode of Rants Gems. Matt Garland, NMLS number 58700, better known as MG the Mortgage Guy. Now today, I ain't even gonna waste too much time because I got a special guest in the building with me today. Someone I've been watching on TV since the 90s. This man is an incredible actor. Now he's in real estate development. 3-time NAACP Image Award winner and founder and CEO of Yoba Development. Dr. Malik Yoba is in the building today. What's going on, my brother?
Good to see you, man.
Good seeing you, my brother. You're doing real estate development from Spanish Harlem. And when I saw you at I think it was the Black Man's Brunch, and you told me you wanted to come on the show, first of all, I was like a big fan. I'm like, yo, this is amazing to me. I had to go tell everybody I know that watched, like my sisters and everything, like, yo, guess who I just met today, right?
That's love, man.
So I'm honored and humbled to have you here on the show today.
Ditto.
So first, let's start this off, right? When did you get involved in real estate? What inspired you to get involved in real estate? And how did you get started in this industry?
So growing up, we grew up in co-ops, affordable co-ops in a place called 1199 Plaza.
Okay.
So, you know, you mentioned the brunch. Jim Jones was there. Jim grew up.
Shout out to Jim.
Yeah, Jim grew up in the next building. He was actually my younger sister, Rahima's age. So they used to run together. Dame Dash grew up in my building as well.
Shout out to Dame.
So we grew up in affordable housing, affordable co-ops. So my father always talked about ownership and the importance of ownership, and so it was kind of drilled into our heads. But around us in Spanish Harlem at the time was a lot of abandoned buildings, empty lots, pissy mattresses, that whole scene that we all know from broke New York in the 70s and 80s. And as a kid, I used to dream about being a billionaire. And I'd say I'm gonna, build, my quote was, I'm gonna build parks and schools and programs.
Okay.
I didn't even think about housing, to be honest with you. I was like, why do we have to have these empty lots in the neighborhood? How come we can't have, with my friends I went to school with downtown, how they lived on the Upper East Side? And so for me, it was always a thought that this is what I'm gonna do. I was that kid that used to like hanging out at construction sites and just kind of watching what was going on. So I was always thinking about it. But then I bought my first property in the mid-90s when I was about 26, 27 years old. But the whole time I was thinking about development. In fact, I tried to do my first development deal when I was 17. I didn't know it was called development.
Really?
I was just trying to get a BMX track built in Central Park. And I met with the Parks Department.
Yeah.
But I had plans. I made a little model.
Really?
Yeah.
And what happened with that?
Dude, he was a friend of my mother's. He indulged me and said, yeah, okay. I think he just enjoyed the fact that I was a 17-year-old kid with this idea. And at the end of it, he was like, nah, it's never gonna happen.
And now they have bike lanes and everything.
But now,
all over the city.
and they have skate parks
and
none
everything.
of that shit was around back then. I used to have to ride my bike over the George Washington Bridge, my little 20-inch wheels, to go race at a place called Braddock Park in North Bergen, New Jersey. Or they used to do indoor racing at the Jersey City Armory on wooden jumps, and I would do that. But I was always thinking about building things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Building things, and you purchased your first home in the 90s.
Yeah. It was a co-op.
A co-op.
Yeah.
So you purchased your first co-op, and then did you still own that today, or did you want to flip it?
So when I sold it, I bought it for like $220, sold it for just under $1 million. And so that was the first thing. Yeah, those returns were crazy.
That's a nice flip.
Yeah. So that's the thing that really made me go, this is the largest amount of money I ever made in one transaction. And so that really got me thinking. And then, I did flip that and bought some property in LA. And then from that, I just really started focusing more on development. I had an opportunity. Shout out to my brother Dan Bythewood, La Cité Development, and Ian Arias. Those are brothers that were like, yo, you want to learn this game? Come, we'll show you. And that's literally how it happened.
Mentorship.
Absolutely, and they're younger than me.
Okay.
Yep. And so, man, Dan had bought 14 acres in Baltimore, the west side of Baltimore. It was friends and family. Susan Taylor's part of that deal. Reginald Van Lee, Kefra Burns, Susan's husband. And Dan, we're in Long Island right now. So Dan grew up here in Long Island. His father, Dan Sr., came up with the Reginald Lewis's of the world and Dick Parsons and Ken Chenault. So they were that generation of black men in business here on Long Island, Sag Harbor, that whole vibe. And in the 80s, his father had partnered with a bunch of black dudes, and they were chartering. They owned jets, like corporate jets that they were chartering to like NBC, shit like that.
Making money like that.
Yeah, and so he grew up with that kind of mentality that it is possible for black folks to work together and to make some good money together. And so Dan, first thing he did was invite me down to Baltimore when it was just dirt in the ground and took me to City Hall, met with land use, met with City Council, met with the mayor. And so that was my entree into how development happens.
So walking into your first deal, you said it's 14 acres. And what exactly were you guys developing now?
So to date, there are 2 structures, 2 buildings, 262 units total, in the middle of a raise for 100 units, senior housing, or 55 and older, which means I could live there.
Yeah, you can live there. But you don't look 55, bro. Let me tell you that.
This is what 55 looks like now. But yeah, man, so that's what's there. I mean, and we've done a partnership with a home builder that's gonna do some single homes, and so in all total, over the 14 acres, it should be 26 structures.
26 structures, how many total units?
3,000.
Whew.
Yeah.
So your first development deal, you come into a home run.
But
I know there's a lot of challenges with that.
Bro, I mean, that property was bought in 2004. I got involved in 2007, 2008. So we're now in 2023. And so just in terms of the timeline of that, you do the math on that, how much time and money and learning has happened. I mean, for the typical project, from the time you make a land acquisition, what's typical, right? I mean, but stuff I'm looking at now and have opportunity to do now, smaller projects, it's an 18-month turnaround, 24-month turnaround. We weren't able to put a shovel in the ground until 2017.
Damn.
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Before you even.
Well, 13.
Well, 13 since they acquired from acquisition.
And that was because of understanding the politics. A lot of it was politics. A lot of it was people didn't believe it was possible. So Dan was 33 years old when the land was purchased. And so people look at this young black dude like, you really gonna get this money to do this? So just dealing with the banks, dealing with other people in our community. Because I became like a spokesperson for it, so I would hit everybody up.
Okay.
Like a lot of folks in the entertainment business and trying to get them to invest. And, folks weren't really moving. They didn't really see it. Now that the structures are up, it's a little easier.
So development is definitely not for the weak at heart.
No, sir.
You're saying 13 years for this one deal in Baltimore.
And I could have never done that personally.
You need to collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of something of that scale.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not a one-man band.
Ever.
Like, so what has been some of the challenges? I know you named a few of them just now, but what has been some of the main challenges you think that has taken this project?
The main challenge is always capital, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, nothing happens unless you have the capital. So, and then in that particular city, and much love and shout out to Baltimore, it's a city that we love. In fact, for me, one of the reasons I was excited to participate in the project is because just from an acting perspective, when I would tour with the Black Plays, and I did probably 10, 12, 13 years of touring, Baltimore was always a city that showed a lot of love, right? I mean, no matter what people had or didn't have, them folks are showing up and they showed a lot of love. And so for me, I felt honored, honestly, to be able to go back into the city where you can see a lot of love hasn't been given. In fact, that side of Baltimore, there hadn't been new development in 50 years, 50.
Wow.
And that's where our people are. But yet you got the University of Maryland right there, right? That is also underwriting some of the methadone clinics in the neighborhood. And so you do the math on that. So why do those clinics exist in this community, right? Why is it still a food desert? Why is it still undervalued? Because, the city had a plan, for the east side, and then what's left is going to be the west side. So challenges were political, challenges were funding. You do have a sense in that city, and this is true in a lot of places, but I think Baltimore in particular, where, we aren't from there. So there's a sense of, who are you
Yeah.
to come in our city and try to take what's ours? Even if you come with a spirit of collaboration, even if you come with a bit of a celebrity element, and I would make it my business to, and so do my partners, to make sure that we build relationships with the community. We've gone through 6 mayors in that time. So Baltimore politics has its own challenges. So it was a lot of challenges, but money is absolutely a big one, whether it's debt or equity. And a lot of it is belief, right? Not just from the banks, but also the city. Can you really deliver on what you say you can do?
Why do you think it's so hard for Black people in particular to get access to capital when it comes to development?
Well, the statistic that came out recently, it said, white folks own 98% of the land in America.
That's crazy.
Right? Another crazy statistic is in 1915, we had something like 21 million acres of land as Black people. Now it's down to like 1.5 million.
We went from 21 million acres
in
1950. Black people
15.
Wow, 1915.
Yes, sir.
Shit, that's like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we're down to how many?
1.5.
1.5.
Yes,
Damn.
sir. Yeah. So I think that at the end of the day, man, it comes down to, there is a belief that we don't deserve to be here, period. Right? I have a lot of developer friends that are 3 and 4 generation development families, right? People that don't look like us, who will say to me, I love what you're doing, but you don't really want to be a developer. It's too capital intensive. In a city like New York, absolutely. And, folks that I know who literally will spend $1 billion before site control, just on feasibility studies and everything else they need to get $1 billion with a B. We're in Hempstead right here. One of my friends, Scott Reckler, who built on the water in I think Hempstead.
Yeah.
600 million before he even got site control.
It's crazy.
But they got capital.
They got the capital. They can raise it.
They can do that, and they're getting it from international players as well. So, I think for us, man, the biggest thing is if you look at just from a consumer perspective, right? That number is $1 trillion that we spend on Jordans and
everything,
dumb shit, all day long.
Absolutely.
So we have the money if we just turn toward ourselves, and that's really why I'm here to talk about that mission and stuff, even stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, people spend money on dumb shit all day long, and this is something that I've been preaching: stop buying dumb shit, right? Because you don't even need it. You don't even need it. It's a distraction. Off camera we was talking about that. People, places, and things will distract you from your ultimate purpose. And a lot of people, I think in this day and age, there's really no excuse for you not to be out here executing in real estate, especially as a Black person. The way the laws were set up against us, where the government really tried to not have Black people have a middle class.
Not tried.
They did. They succeeded.
Absolutely.
They succeeded in that. But now the laws have changed. The resources are now available. Now I feel like there's no excuse. So if you're still out here buying dumb shit and you're out here spending your money, you're not investing your money, shame on you, in my opinion. You're being selfish to your last name. That's just how I look at it. What do you think that we can do, especially, the younger generation, to really get in the real estate game? Like, is it mentorship? Is it more education? What do you feel like we need to do to really get in that game?
Well, I think it's all of the above. I mean, you mentioned people, places, and things. So Yoba Development, our slogan is builder of people, places, and things in that order, very intentionally, right? So I think number one is intention, right? You got to know that you are going to do this and you're going to be consistent, and not just have the intention, right? But there's a saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but you got to have the follow through, and you have to be consistent, and you have to be resilient, right? Because it's not easy, right? But with Google and God, we really do have no excuse.
With Google and God, you have no excuse.
Bro,
That's a fact.
Any question you want, right? You can, Chat GPT or Google. You can find the answer. Now it's just, do you have the resilience? Do you have the stick-to-itiveness to get up every single day and go for it, regardless of what you're doing? So whether you're making movies, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a school teacher, whether you're a janitor, whoever you are, if you aspire to do this thing, you have to be consistent. So you mentioned mentorship and education. Absolutely. That's, again, why I set my company up the way we did, right? So it's real estate, media, and education. And so from running the I Build New York program at the Brooklyn Steam Center, we launched that a few months ago, even though we've been, talking about consistency and resilience. We've been working to do it for the last few years with the Department of Education. And thank God, shout out to Chancellor Banks and even Eric Adams, because with these black men in position of leadership, really encouraging this type of behavior from us as private citizens to say, you know what, I'm going to partner with the Department of Education so that we can make sure that these young people in the school system get access to this information, right? So working with the Brooklyn Steam Center, which services 8 high schools in Brooklyn, kids that are studying career technical education pathways in design and engineering, construction, computer science, media, culinary. So working with this group of young people, putting them up on game, right? Working with Pratt Undergraduate School of Architecture. And the work that we do is for high schools, colleges, and community. So that's the high school and the college level. And the community level, where you'll be with us on May 12th and 13th. Why are we doing From the Ground Up Flipping the Hood? We're doing that because during the pandemic, I heard From the Ground Up Flipping the Hood as an inspiration.
Okay.
And I stayed true to the vision that I started thinking about like-minded people that have the same mission to educate our community, to work collectively, to invest together, people who want to put other folks up on scholarships. I got development sites. You want to partner with me on development sites. You have my man, someone like you. Okay, so we need financing for a deal you have. So let's bring MG in here. You can do the mortgage piece. This person can do the title company. This person is your, contractor that can do that. This the person that's doing your whatever it might be. That we have to be intentional about working together as a community, letting go of this idea that we don't have it and we can't do it together, because when we put our resources together, we can do amazing things. And so for me, this is the legacy building. It's not just the TV and film shit that I might be known for, but what did I do for the community to build the community and build the people first? So
I like your slogan, people first.
1,000%. I tell students all the time, so in a classroom setting, right, I might have a PowerPoint up, right, and it might say, what is real estate development, and then a definition. And so, hey, who can come up here and present that? You're dealing with the average 16, 17-year-old. They're not given that opportunity to stand up and present anything, particularly in an area that they don't know.
Absolutely.
Right? So now we're going to work on not just the information, but we're going to work on your presentation. You talked about this when you started your podcast. You were uncomfortable in camera, and what do you look like, and how do I sound, and how do I project my voice, and am I clear, and all that stuff. So we're giving you soft skills like presentation and building your confidence, particularly for kids that might be introverted, that no one's really checking for them, but giving them an opportunity to shine and encouraging that. So you're learning about the content itself, you're learning about yourself. Now we got cameras rolling in the classroom, similar to what you have here.
Yeah.
Now I'm teaching you filmmaking, I'm teaching you real estate, I'm teaching you the ethos of giving back, I'm teaching you soft skills like social emotional learning, how to present yourself in the world. Because now if you really want to be in this game, you got to understand people are going to trust you based on your ability to present yourself properly.
So as someone who's worked both in entertainment, real estate, how do you think the two fields compare in terms of their demands and their challenges?
That's a great question. It's a really good question. It's funny because, there's a lot of parallels between film production and development, right? So on the film side, an executive producer of film is the same as a developer, right? The executive producer is going to hold the vision for the entire thing that you're doing. You're going to make sure that, all right, let me find the best architect, let me find the best, attorneys, let me find, the best, contractor, let me find the best funding source find the land, get site control, right? So if that's on the development side. On the film side, so let me find the writer, let me find the best director, let me find the location to shoot this, let me find the production designer. The production designer in film is the same as essentially your architecture, interior designer on development. So those parallels are the same. Raising money is a challenge in both spaces. And it says a great question you asked that, because literally I was shooting a show called God Friended Me.
Okay.
Where I was playing a real estate developer.
Go figure.
In Brooklyn at Steiner Studios, and across the street, my friend Scott, who I mentioned earlier, is developing an entire city block. Down the block is the projects.
Wow.
Right? And I was thinking, so how many people from the projects walk by this set or walk by that construction site and have no idea about anything beyond maybe the actor or the construction worker? How do these worlds really work?
Yeah.
And I'm in both of these worlds. And it was while doing that show, I thought, I want to bring three of my passions together: real estate, filmmaking, and education, working with young people. And that was really how Yoba Development was born, by taking those challenges that exist both in film and both in real estate and finding a way to bring them together.
I think that's smart, because content is king.
Right.
And content has always been king. We just didn't, again, have access to it. But now, in today's world with social media, I mean, it's in your hand, it's in your pocket every day with the iPhones or your Androids or whatever you're using. So I think it's a smart play by teaching the youth not only real estate, but how to get your message across.
Yeah.
Because if you just saying it to your friends in your circle, the world is not hearing it.
Yep.
You got to get on this thing right here.
Yep.
And you got to be able to speak that message to teach others. So I think that's brilliant what you're doing of combining the both worlds, because it's equally as important, not just having the information, but being able to articulate it to others to teach the community to keep going forward.
And a lot of times, like, I'd go to real estate conferences with amazing black people doing their thing, but no one on the street knows who they are.
Exactly.
So I'd go to like the Reese conference, which is Real Estate Executive Council. And I remember the first time I went to one of their conferences, it was probably 2018, 2019, and people look like, what are you doing here, man? I'm like, all right, well, I'm here to tell you a story. Mm-hmm. And so I began to build those relationships with these people, and I share with you my doc series, and that's what that was about. Let me find these people that are in this ecosystem, that are doing their thing, and let me create some new heroes. When you think about the food business, there was a time when there was no such thing as a celebrity chef. It was Julia Childs and everybody else. People weren't really on television talking about food like
and
that.
cooking.
But the same thing happened with real estate. Same things happened with Earn Your Leisure.
Absolutely.
Right? Like there was Jim Cramer.
Basically.
Back in the day, there was Fred Brown talking about it, right? But there, Earl Graves with Black Enterprise. But no one brought it to the forefront to the people.
Yeah, no one made it cool enough for us to want to seek the information.
Right.
Like you said, Jim Cramer, obviously we all probably watched Jim Cramer at some point in time, but he's not really speaking of our language, right? So I think what we have done with Earn Your Leisure and just many other people in our space who are doing an amazing job at articulating their messages for whatever business that they're in, we have broke down the barrier. Now the hood is paying attention. And when you got the hood,
you got everything.
You got everything.
We drive culture.
We drive culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all we try to do is, let's speak to our people, right? Yeah. Because there was no one teaching us when we was coming up this stuff. Right. We all had to learn the hard way, trial and error, right? Our losses became our best lessons. So that's why I love the fact that what you're doing, you're bringing real estate, because look, there's no superstars in real estate like that in our community. And when I look at your lineup, for example, of your activation that you're happening on May 12th and May 13th, I'm looking at all these wonderful, incredible real estate people, but no one knows who they are.
Exactly. They will after, though.
After, they definitely will. But when I look at that, I'm like, damn, these are some dope people.
Yeah.
Why they not speaking, right? And a lot of it is because of the companies that they work for, right? They want to keep them, the compliance, they say it's compliance, or it goes against the brand. They can't talk on social media like that. And I always tell my people who are in these great positions, like, fuck them, right? You have a responsibility for our community.
Right.
Like, you're a higher up in this bank and this person. You got access to this. You have knowledge. You need to be on your phone talking about it.
Yeah. And they that's true because, even to get somebody like when I, did the doc series, right? Someone who might work at Goldman Sachs who's killing it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, people like, well, she's no longer there. Take Margaret Anadou.
Okay.
As a for instance, the reason she wasn't a doc is because Goldman Sachs had to approve all the questions before. I'm like, yo, I'm just trying to make you a superhero because there's little girls out here that need to know you exist, that look like you. But there's workarounds, and there's enough people, I think, also that have their own companies now that, we featured, and those that do work for the Bank of Americas of the world, like the Maurice Colemans of the world, who, everything you see Tyler doing right now with TD Jakes, Maurice is up in that mix. The big entertainment complex they're doing in Atlanta, Maurice is working on the financing for that. And Maurice is a brother from Jersey, right? Grew up in the hood. He's in episode 2 of my doc series.
The real estate mixtape.
Yes, sir.
I love that.
Yeah.
And in that, and I saw how you brought him in to meet the kids and everything like that. I thought that was dope because you don't think, and it was funny, they was having their own dialogue in episode 2, right? And they was talking about, I guess they was on Fifth Ave or something like that.
They were on 15th Street between 7th and 8th.
7th and 8th, right? Yeah. So they were saying, all the gentrification that's happening, and we thought it was gentrification, but the brother's behind all of this.
Right.
And I said, that's so powerful that they even had the opportunity to meet the brother who's putting things in place, not to quote unquote gentrify, but just to make it better. Yeah. And I think, what's your definition of gentrification? Because I think everybody has a big misconception when they hear the word gentrification. Yeah. It's like negative. Yeah. But in my opinion, it's not.
Well, because you understand the game. You understand that at the end of the day, cities are always going to grow, or they're going to go up or they're going to go down. Right? But it's going to move. It's not going to stay the same, right? It's going to be dilapidated. It's going to be improved. But I think that for me, as Mo says in that episode, if we participate, then it becomes participation and not just gentrification. And
absolutely.
So, like I've, got this development site in Bed-Stuy that we're working on right now. When I meet with the city, right, whether it's land use, whether it's the Brooklyn Borough president, whether it's the mayor, the first question or the first comment I'm always thinking about is what is going to be the public good that we can do, not just market rate housing. Even like I'm at one site right now, you do 8 units in it, right? But at least 2 of them can be affordable, or they could be for young people coming out of foster care or returning citizens from prison that are in school to make sure that they have housing, right? So it's not just about let's just put up, when you run on the numbers and say, okay, well we can make, the acquisition could be $600,000 for the land, but when all is said and done, it could be worth $5 million, and we can make $1.5 million with that, right? My partner and I on that. It's not just about the money, but it's about how do we make sure that it's serving something bigger than ourselves. Same thing is true in Baltimore, right? We have people who used to be homeless that now live in Class A housing. Dudes who used to hustle, who could literally look out the window from the gym or over the balcony from the saltwater pool, which we have in the hood, and go, I used to hustle on that corner, right? So now these dudes that used to hustle are now living in Class A housing. They feel personally responsible for the property. So when they see people acting up, they're like, yo, do you need us to do
what we need to do?
Sometimes we might need them to do something, right? Or things like, there's a family in there that rents out 20 units, right? They run their Airbnb business. So we're supporting businesses within the business itself. Mom and son who own vending machines. You see me wear my Yoba Development jacket. Well, one of our residents, Phil Pope, shout out to Phil. He does my jackets for me.
Dope. Keep the money circulating within.
Yeah.
And now you get the people who are from the hoods, now they're overprotective. Yeah. Because they see the amenities, they see the lifestyles, like, no, we need to keep this activated.
And they see, these are black developers. They always tell you, do you know what it feels like to know that y'all are the people behind this? And they feel like, okay, now we can do that, right? And the education extends to them, not just through the inspiration, but let me show you how you too can get into this game.
How do you think, because you do a lot of community work, right? and especially your advocate with affordable housing. How do you think we can make housing more accessible and affordable for all Americans? Because we're in an inflation problem right now.
Yeah.
How do you think, especially from a developer side, how we can make this more accessible for more people?
Well, part of the biggest reason why housing is unaffordable is because the lack of housing stock. So America right now needs at least 7 million units of housing.
Correct.
That's a 2, 3, whatever the number is, $1 trillion opportunity, business opportunity.
Absolutely.
But then you have 1% of developers are people of color. So part of my mission is to teach people development so that more of us understand it's a lane. I love the fact that when I went to the Brooklyn STEAM Center and did a presentation for 360-something students, 39 students said, I want to learn this game. 10% of the population of that one school, right? So we got to go to the babies and say, let me show you that this is a lane. And so until people realize that they also can play in the space, we're going to continue to have that problem. And from a leadership perspective, we're in a window right now where we have Mayor Adams in position, and he has the opportunity to follow the legacy of like Maynard Jackson in Atlanta or Howard Washington in Chicago, to say, I'm going to make it my business imperative that I'm driving black business leaders, that we are going to create millionaires. You got the Herman Russells of the world, right? His father was able to start that company in Atlanta in the 70s because of Maynard Jackson. They had participation in building Atlanta Hartsfield Airport and built that. They're now 3 generations in the game. And so that's really what it is. And holding our politicians accountable, because they'll run on policy to say homelessness is an issue, we need affordable housing, but when they get in office,
They don't do nothing.
it's not that they don't do nothing. What happens is, because they got to serve all constituents, right? So you don't see affordable housing going up in South Brooklyn, in Bay Ridge, as a for instance. You don't see it happening in Brooklyn Heights, right? In affluent neighborhoods, what folks will say is not in my backyard. That's the NIMBYism, right? So it's understanding how the ecosystem is actually working so that we understand where we need to apply that pressure. Sometimes the pressure is polite, sometimes it's not. But if we don't understand the whole ecosystem, back to your question about gentrification, it's not just somebody came in and is displacing us. No, there were conversations that were had through land use. They were happening in the business community. They were happening in the finance community. They were happening at the political level, right? That said, this is going to happen over this 20-year period. Right now, I'm part of a group which includes Don Peebles, McKissick, right? Moody Nolan, largest black architectural firm, NHP Foundation, who are the ones that invited me to the party, a group out of Nashville called Pillars, and another one out of Louisville. I can't, APK, I forget their actual, it's an acronym. But you got 5 led black organizations. NHP Foundation is not black led, but a lot of black leadership there, right? That's a 10 to 15 year project to redevelop 2,100 units of public housing in the city of Nashville, right? So we know that over the next 10 to 15 years, this is what's happening. So part of our participation in that deal is the education. It's community engagement, is going, and I was there a month or so ago, meeting with residents, talking to from 6-year-olds to the parents, to the older people. What do you want in this community? What do you need? How can we be part of providing that so that we're not just building the housing, but back to the people, the places, and the things that we need so that we can be a part of this. Downtown Brooklyn. I met with the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership in 2007 and knew in 2007, in the next 5 years, $9 billion of investment is coming. So when you look at what's happening between Tillery, when you come off the Brooklyn Bridge to Atlantic Avenue, none of those buildings were there.
None of them.
I knew they were coming.
None of them was
because
there.
I met with the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, and they gave me a tour and they showed me the plans. And so we got to put each other up on game. So when we find out about it, we got to let people know so that, we need to be on those community boards, right? Who are the people sitting on the community boards? It usually is property owners. You don't have to just be a property owner to have a voice, because when I come into the community and say, we want to put this building up, it's going to be 40 units or whatever, 80 feet, 100 feet, whatever it's going to be, there's all kinds of considerations. Well, how is that going to impact traffic flow? How, what about parking? Garbage collection. You have to do shadow studies. So if I put this building up and you across the street, now all of a sudden I'm going to put shadows on the light that you had, and so you have the right as a community member to be like, nah,
I don't like that.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
You can't go 40 stories. You got to go 20 stories. Well, then now as a developer, that means it's not going to pencil out. We can't put that there. But gentrification, back to that question, if we aren't participating at every level, then it's on us. Once we know.
Now, you've been on this development journey for what, 20 years now?
Almost
20
16,
years.
Something like that.
16 plus years on this development journey. Like, what are the steps or actual items you can give our audience if they want to get into the development game to kind of go through to learn about everything that you just said? How do you find these things out?
Google and God.
Google and God.
Bro, literally, how to become a real estate developer. What do I need? Investopedia is a great resource. Like, literally. Like, you don't have to go that far beyond your fingertips to start asking the questions so that you can get the information. So, obviously, once you have the information, well, what do you do with it?
Yeah, what's next?
So, the first thing you need to do is find a site, right? You can't do anything without site control. So, you can start shaking the trees in your neighborhood, start asking the people, like, wherever you live, or people in other neighborhoods that you don't live in. You have to start doing your research, and let me find a piece of land. Is this, now you have to do all your feasibility studies, you gotta do your surveys, you gotta, meet with the city, so the political piece, right? Who within the city, are there any liens on the property, or all the due diligence that you have to do to figure out, is this a viable
development site.
Yeah, right. And then once you do that, get your team together. Who's gonna work?
Who should be on your team?
So certainly financing is always going to be, so let me back up a little bit. On my team, it's always people that know more than me.
Facts. Rule number one. Rule number one.
Number one, because I do not move in this space like I am some expert. I am hungry and I'm humble. And I will always have people around me. Every little question that I have, I will always seek my advisory group. So that's number one. I was having this meeting Friday. I was just connected with a guy through another partner on a bigger project because a lot of small stuff comes my way.
Okay.
I've got this little site, or somebody hit me the other day. We got a 27 unit, building in Flatbush. We want to sell it for X. What do you think? Or I've got this site over here, or this person's in foreclosure over here. So for those smaller projects, I was put together with an individual who has done a lot of small projects, who's looking to do bigger projects. So it looks like it could be a really great marriage for us. And so he knows way more than me. Anytime he's run a calculation that I may not be aware of, like for instance, people might not be familiar with the term FAR, right? Floor area ratio.
Yeah.
And so how you calculate what is buildable based on the floor area ratio, what are the building costs per square foot, how many, so if we know we can do, whatever, 5,000 square feet, so we know, okay, within 5,000 square feet, we could put 4 units at this number. These are building costs. Average one bedroom is going to be 650, square feet. Okay, so we'll start doing those calculations, right? If I don't understand something, that's pretty basic math, right?
Yeah.
In real estate, but whatever it is, I'm like, yo, show me that again.
Yeah.
Show me, okay, now let me do it.
And take the time to learn.
All day long.
I think that's the most important thing, because you can have all these smart people, but if you're not going to use it to your advantage and say, all right, sit me down, explain this so I can understand
over
it.
and over
and over again.
And then, what am I doing with the babies in this? And then I teach it to them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best ways to know how much you learn something is, do you have the ability to teach it to somebody else?
Facts.
So, yeah, but it's putting the team together, right? Obviously the financing, your legal team, your architects, your contractors, your designers, I'm sure I'm leaving something out, but making sure that you have the team together that has done it. And don't try it by yourself for the first time. is what I would say.
Collaborate.
Absolutely.
Collaborate. You can curse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Collaboration is greater than competition at the end of the day.
Especially with us, man.
Yeah.
Especially with us.
We don't need to compete with each other. I want to eat with you, right? That's
I don't want to be around broke people. That's how I felt growing up. Like,
Yeah.
why do we have to be? As a kid, I really didn't understand poverty. I didn't understand how it related to real estate. How the federal government, particularly even before World War II, after the Great Depression, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was saddled with the question, how are we going to build a middle class? Well, shit, we're going to build housing. People are broke in cities. Well, what about these suburbs?
Yeah.
Let's drive development in the suburbs. In fact, I'm going to give you money. You're a developer, white man. I'm going to make sure that you have money from the federal, the Federal Loan Corporation, from the Federal Housing Administration.
Yeah, from FHA.
Yeah, saying, okay, we're going to give you this money. You're going to go develop. Donald Trump's father was part of that group in that generation, but you can't sell it to black people.
Can't sell it to black people. FHA wasn't designed for black people at all.
Or the appraisal business.
Yep.
The appraisal business, by definition, if anybody hasn't read The Color of Law, do yourself a favor, go buy that book and read that book or get it on audio, right? The appraisal business, by definition, said, when it was started in the late 20s, anywhere there are black and brown people, it's inherently less valuable. And so back to your gentrification question, the only way to gentrify is if I devalue what you had. Because we're all on the same level playing field, and there's no gentrification, there's just development.
Yep.
So let's devalue what you got. So once we're done over here,
we're gonna come back, we're gonna spin the block.
Bro.
And we're gonna come develop this.
And that's why we're doing from the ground up flipping the hood. So people understand the first hood we flipping is here. Because the first real estate we own is in our minds.
Gotta flip your mind first.
We're gonna get the mind right. We're gonna start with the meditation. We're doing all those things, right? We're gonna deal with that trauma that says, I can't trust you, black man. Don't try to take my last. You want me to put it in with you? Nah, man, I don't trust you. We gotta get to that. And you know, my partner's in Baltimore, right? We have some unsavory elements sometimes we have to deal with.
Unsavory.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Shit ain't tasty at all.
It's unsavory.
Tastes like shit. You know, and it's not the people, it's a way of thinking.
Yeah, it's a mentality.
Right? So you put something in the neighborhood, and there are people who will want to burn it down. They might say, you know what, that garage door looks like an amusement park. I think I'm gonna ride that thing. You just cost me $15,000 because you thought you need to play on this garage door that we put in there. So when you have those real elements that are still in the hood that you want to develop, you have to deal with that.
You have to.
And it's not easy.
Nah, it's not easy dealing with our people who have that broke mentality. Because they just savages. They don't really care. They don't care about life itself. So they damn sure not going to care about your property or anything that you got going on. So it's definitely a challenge. And this is why I tell people, if you get into real estate, you have to really be cut from this cloth. This is something that you really have to want to do because the money is in the hood. And that's why you see all the white developers and everybody, they going, like you said, they're spinning the block back. And they come into these hoods, but we are from these neighborhoods. We can deal with our people accordingly, and we can put them in a better situation, because especially if they see us, who are the ones doing it, at some point, let's hope they'll come around. And I'm starting to see that in certain areas, people are now starting to not be unsavory, right? They're starting to really realize, like, wait a minute, let's not mess this up, because this is our people. And let's hope that trend continues. But I love what you guys are doing about just educating just the people, because I think that's the most important thing. And like you said, the mindset is the most important thing.
So we talk about generational wealth building. A lot of times, yes, we need to have our trust set up. We need to have, do your estate planning. You need to do all those things, understand the value of life insurance and how to, flip those things and use those things as assets, right? Because you can, as you know, you can borrow against them, and they can be your own bank. But we also have to think about your kids, right? If something happened to you, who's feeding into your kids? I don't mind taking on that responsibility. and teaching my kids that that's what we have to do, because that's what I learned from my father. My father was that dude who literally would go upstate New York, right? Had a friend that had a farm, and get a half a cow. He'd get the cow slaughtered. We had one of those double-side freezers. He'd give us what we needed. Then he would drive down to Philly and feed people that he knew in Philly, right? Other families. So we grew up watching this, right? You know, I came home from school one day and there's these kids in the house. Like, yo, who are these kids? The mother had a psychotic break. She's at Bellevue. We taking care of them. There was another family. The father was doing an 8-year bid, accused of rape that he didn't commit. That whole time the man did 8 years, my father took care of that family.
Wow.
When we went shopping, they went shopping. When it was time for school clothes, they went school clothes, got school clothes. We ate dinner every day at 6 o'clock. They sat around the table with us.
Wow.
So I grew up with that kind of mentality of, you know, he used to say, if there's a crack, fill it. Leave places better than they were when you found them. So for me, I'm just drawn that way. It doesn't have to be my problem. If I see you suffering, right, I'm gonna take care of you. And so people look at, oh, that's Malik Yoba. It ain't about the actor, it ain't about clout, it ain't about nothing, but you're suffering. How many times we've seen those videos? Some old man gets knocked in the head, he's laying in the ground, people step over him.
Yeah.
I don't have that, and I don't know how to do that. If I see you down there, I'm gonna lift you up. So that to me is as much a part of real estate development as anything. We used to be the real estate.
Agreed.
When you think about stocks and bonds, right? That was us. Bank of America, Bank of New York, Citibank, all of them, Chase, JP Morgan Chase, all of them started off the real estate of black people. So when you asked the earlier question, when did you get into real estate? Well, real estate was always in me because we were the real estate.
We were the real estate. Powerful. Speaking of that, right? Our people fought for us to have the right to buy real estate. And in today's climate, especially with social media, everybody has a phone, they have an opinion. You'll have people out here saying, don't buy real estate, you shouldn't buy. I disagree with that. I think black people, we have to buy real estate because they did take it away from us. Now we have the right to buy. How do you feel about the first-time home buyer who's going to watch this? Should they buy real estate right now?
If it's the right time for you, because it's not always the right time.
Agreed.
Right? Sometimes people, and we learned this in 2008, right? Everybody thought it was, you know, time for everybody to buy, but a lot of people ended up upside down. I got somebody right now, my man called me last week because his cousin's upside down. Hasn't paid a mortgage in 6 years.
Wow.
She can't afford the property that she has. Can't even find the deed right now.
Damn.
We can find it through title company and, you know, lawyers and stuff like that, but I'm happy to help her. It's a 2-family in Bed-Stuy. So the first question I ask her is, do you want to stay in this property? She goes, I'd love to. All right, so how do we help her out? It's a 2-family. It needs a lot of work, and so that's one of the projects on the docket right now, to help her figure out how do you keep what you have, or a portion of it, and partner. So if you're upside down, I don't want you to completely lose it, as long as you could do your part.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're figuring that out right now. But there's some great articles actually on, you know, Atlantic had one recently on, you know, one of the biggest lies that people were told, that everybody should own property. It's not right for everybody. It's an asset when it's yours, right? Because until you pay the mortgage, the bank owns it, really, right? Let's be real.
Technically,
right?
yeah.
Technically,
yeah.
Now, if there's an increase in equity, then you have some wiggle room to play with, and you can do a home equity line of credit and use that to, you know,
To build
buy
wealth.
another property to build. But you got to be careful if your financial situation isn't in a place where it makes sense for you to purchase just because everyone's purchasing.
Well, that's why I tell everybody, don't be house rich and cash poor. You know, eligibility and affordability are two different things. The bank will give you a loan based off of your gross income, but you live off your net income.
That's
so
right.
even if they're going to give you $500,000, $700,000,
Can you really afford that?
Can you really afford it? Because they're not taking into consideration child care, car insurance, groceries, light bill, any of these
And they
things.
know that if you can't, well, who's taking it back?
Oh, we're going to take it back.
Right.
Like 100%. And we're waiting for you to foreclose.
And even on the development side, right? So you have situations where a bank, reputable banks, you go to them for debt because they very rarely are going to put equity in your deal. So you go and say, all right, well, we need $5 million for me to put in this deal. And so they know that if you aren't able to complete, to close that transaction and complete that deal, well, guess what? We're going to give you just enough that if you fuck up, we're going to grab that from you.
Absolutely.
And that happens all the time on the developer side, too.
Absolutely. There's a lot of developments that go into foreclosure that never make the news or anything like that. It's a big problem, actually.
And it can happen a lot with hard money lenders as well.
Absolutely.
Because people know, I'm going to give you just enough. If you can't fulfill that, especially if they're in first position, that first money in.
Give me my money. Well, and that's why I try to tell people before you invest $1 into anything, you should do your research. You should understand what you're doing. You should have your team built. I don't care if you're buying your first house, right? And you want to have barbecue and bar mitzvahs all summer. Great. What do you know about the business? What do you know about the neighborhood? Can you really afford it? Do you have reserves? Most importantly, because life happens, right? You can't spend all your money and think, hey, I got a house, everything's good. No, roof leaks, boiler breaks. You don't want to get into the credit card matrix. You know,
and
it's
it used
a
to be, 3 to 6 months
of reserves.
You might need that joint for like a year.
Oh, now it's like 12 months minimum right now. Because for me, the way things are continuing to increase, I don't think 6 months is long enough to have like a rainy day fund. I think right now you really have to go to at least 12 months. So that way you know, okay, God forbid anything happens, I got a year to figure it out versus 90 days. Because 90 days go, I mean, look at it, we're in April, May already. Like the year just started. And it's gone already. So I always try to tell people who watch my content, don't be house rich. I've been saying that shit for like 5 years on this internet. And now people are starting to understand, like, yo, Matt, I get it. Because like your homeboy call you, like people call me all the time, like, yo, Matt, I can't afford this. Like, I'm screwed right now. I'm like, well, I'm looking at your gram. You out here in Tulum. You out here in Bali.
What do you say to people like that?
One, like you, sell it, partner, like, or if it's just not for you, it's just not for you. I think home ownership is important, especially for Black and brown people, but it's not for everybody, like you said. Mentally, you have to be here.
Right.
It's a responsibility. It takes a certain level of discipline and maturity because those bills come for the first. They come on the 15th for the following month.
Yeah.
They want their money. Yeah. The utility people want their money. The bank want their money. Everybody want their money. So it can be a shock if you're coming from living at home or renting where you don't have too much responsibility to now every single month you have all these bills. And if you're not making money, if you're a person who's living paycheck to paycheck, that's a part that will kill your mental health.
Yeah.
And it'll make you snap. So what I try to tell people is, look, make sure you're mentally ready for this because it's a huge responsibility of home ownership. And not everybody's gonna be ready for that. And when people come to me like, yo, MG, I wanna do this, I wanna do this, like, all right, can you really afford it? Are you really mentally ready for what's gonna come at you? Because I'm not one of these guys on the internet say, oh, you can buy a house with no money and use other people's money. Yeah, that's true, but you start taking other people's money, they want their money too.
That's right.
Right? Are you equipped to give these investors
back their money
plus the return that you promise in the time frame that you promise, especially if you have no experience. So slow the hell down. Learn the game first. Do a deal or two. Like you said, partner with someone. And if you are in distress and you own a house, does it have equity right now? And if it doesn't, if you're upside down, me personally, because I've been through foreclosures, I've been through short sales, sell that shit. Get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful thing about it. And that's when it makes sense, right? Like, always knowing that it's a chess piece.
Absolutely.
It's a game, right?
It's Monopoly.
Yeah, it really is. Real life Monopoly.
Yeah.
Right? So it's great when you're in it. If you have property, that you can leverage it, but understand the timing on when to get in and when to get out.
You got to know your
and don't have an ego about it.
You can't have an ego.
You got to be disciplined.
You got to be disciplined. Got to have an exit strategy, and you can't be emotionally attached to real estate.
That's right.
You have to know when to get the hell out of Dodge.
And the right emotional attachment. So, which brings me to why, if I knew what I knew now, I would have bought all of Harlem when they were selling real estate for $1. But my
Yeah.
emotions, I was too bougie, right? I'm from the hood. I bought my first property on the West Side. You know, right? Alec Baldwin was my neighbor. Madonna. I'm
Yeah.
Steps from Central Park.
You're a big superstar.
I made it.
Yeah.
I made it, man. And then I go back to Harlem, in Brooklyn. You know, properties were $200,000-$300,000. Nah, I'm from the hood. I ain't gonna do that. But that's why I'm so passionate about the education. That's why I'm doing From the Ground Up, Flipping the Hood, because there are hoods everywhere, right? Next week I'm in DC with the African American Mayors Association, doing a fireside chat, screening some of my doc at the gala, right? Meeting with these mayors from there's 500 mayors in all these black cities around America. Everywhere there was redlining, there's opportunity for us.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to just be in New York.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's why we went to Baltimore, because we saw what happened in New York. We saw what happened in California. So we're like, okay.
Let's catch the next wave.
Let's catch the next wave. And so being able to embrace where we are, not for the reasons a lot of us have embraced the hood. Nigga, I'm from the hood. Nigga, you don't know, nigga, you ain't shit. Not for that. But to say we were deliberately undervalued. We were deliberately left in these rat mazes so that we would kill each other, so that we would not understand, okay, I don't have great education in this school because there's no tax base from the real estate that's paying for the education, because those things are connected in this country, right? Real estate taxes do pay for education.
Absolutely.
And so when we understand the matrix we're in, then we can embrace it in a much more loving and nurturing way, not to kill each other for the block, but to say, how are we gonna own this block? How are we gonna flip this block? Because we're gonna put our resources together. If you go to a place in like Chicago and Detroit, on the west side of Detroit, there's a place called Fashion Avenue, right? That area is largely black owned. It's the largest strip of real estate owned by black people. And what I love about that area is folks who came up together understood what they were dealing with, and they began to invest in the community. Shout out to my man Jason Dixon over there. Jason's brother bought at 23 years old, bought like a building, a medical supply business, and then opened up, I forget all the business he has over there, but one of the things he's doing is infrastructure, right? Fiber optics, and especially with the infrastructure bill that's come down, he's well positioned to take advantage of that because of what he was doing and how they work together as a neighborhood, as a community. The restaurants, the clothing stores, the residential, like I said, the medical supply businesses, and they can sit there now, 20 years later, collectively and say, we did this as a community. That ain't the side of Detroit that you see on the news.
Nah, definitely not.
But they over there doing it, and it's all black people.
Yeah, Detroit. We were just in Detroit recently for an event. What up, though? Shout out to all my people in Detroit. And there's a lot of opportunity for black people out there. And if you're really tapped into it, you can make not just in Detroit, but anywhere in America, it's the same opportunities, especially for people that look like us. You just gotta really, like you said, get out that bullshit mentality and say, oh, I'm from the hood, I don't wanna go back to the hood. Now you gotta look at where's the gold at, and then where's the opportunity. And most of the hoods across America, that's where the opportunity is for us to make some money. Gentrify our own hoods before they do it, is how I look at it. So I think that's dope. I wanna talk about your activation that's coming up real quick. From the ground up, flipping the hood at Brooklyn Navy Yard.
You should read the press.
Read
that exact as it is.
All right,
that says it, baby.
Let me
It's better
get
coming
there.
from you than me. That first paragraph.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Hold on. Let me go to this. All right. It says 3-time NAACP Image Award winner and founder and CEO of Yoba Development, Dr. Malik Yoba, has accomplished many things in his decade-long career on screen and stage, but behind it all was his passion was always to educate, empower, and uplift community via the arts, entrepreneurship, with a particular focus on the youth. I love that. Well-known actor, writer, filmmaker, musician, longtime educator, and serial entrepreneur. But over the past 16 years, Yoba has steadily emerged as a real estate developer with projects in New York, Baltimore, Boston, and Georgia, among other cities. All right, so on May 12th, May 13th, at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Building 303, located at 399 Sand Street, right? You present this one-of-a-kind, 2-day generational wealth building activation, entitled From the Ground Up, Flipping the Hood. Community Focus Initiative brings together professionals and entrepreneurs of color in mental health, real estate development, finance, art, culture, technology, wellness, very important, education, sports, investments, politics, extremely important. We don't have too many of us in politics. We need more of us in politics, and entertainment, and will provide opportunities for the community at large, but especially students and young people of color. I love this. Tell us more about this event, this activation that you're gonna. Why now?
This is actually the 6.0 version of the work I was doing in the 80s.
Okay.
So from 1987 to 1989, I worked with a group called the City Kids Foundation. I worked for them for 6 years, from 19 to 24 years old. That's where I was right before my acting career took off. But in the 80s, I was working in 13 high schools in New York to help reduce the dropout rate by going into schools, engaging young people around things they cared about, and help them find their voice so they want to stay in school. So part of that group was people like Isaiah Washington, Donald Faison, Dash Myhawk was on Ray Donovan, Lisa LaPera who's on Equalizer right now, Dule Hill, Lauryn Hill came through there. So in the 80s, the work I was doing through this grant, Tennis Improvement Dropout Prevention, is a division of DOE. Back then it was the Board of Education. We would use art to engage young people in things that they cared about, bring them into a space, and give them their voice. And so all I'm doing is what I was doing in the 80s. I know the value of when you put young people at the center of education opportunities, and I was that young person. I was 19 years old when Lori Meadoff saw something in me and said, I want to hire you. And at 20 years old, she hired me to be a junior chapter specialist, which meant that I worked in every single borough of New York, and we would service these schools 5 days a week, going with the theater company, which I refused to be a part of because I was more interested in running the organization. Mm-hmm. And we'd engage young people, and then every year we would do something called the City Kids Speak event around different issues and bring kids together and find their voice. So that's really all I'm doing. It's saying, now my Rolodex is pretty deep. So I got people in politics, people in tech, people in real estate and finance and all these areas, and I put 2 days together of some of the most brilliant minds that I know that are gonna not just have opportunity for us, to collaborate. Obviously we've invited you and the rest of the guys are invited as well, mm-hmm. to come and pour into these young people. At the same time, we can work on deals together and they can see in real time that these are black people that are doing it together. So absolutely. The development site that I mentioned in Bed-Stuy, there could be opportunities for people to invest in that. We got a crowd equity fund platform starting called Invest Tank that's set up for real estate and entertainment projects. We've got my man Mike Alexander, who's now working at a company called Momentous Securities, where I have at least 4 different developers that have projects right now that Mike can look at, can vet, and see which ones he can invest in. We got a sister, Venus Quantz, who has a company called Launch Tech. She's a federal contractor with NASA. She's got scholarships for Space Camp. We got John Crossman, a white dude who identifies as a conservative Republican, who wrote a white paper for HBC around the value of HBCUs having degree programs in real estate. There's not one HBCU right now that we can get a master's degree in real estate. So it's incredible people who share in the mission of we want to make sure that our people get what they need, and we have to see it, right? And we have to make it accessible. What you all do with InvestFest, incredible. Bringing the generations together, mm-hmm. to say this is what it looks like when black people not just sit around and talk about the stuff, but we actually make moves together.
I love this.
Investing together. So that's why.
So this is happening on the 12th, May 12th, May 13th. How do we get tickets?
So you can go to yobadevelopment.com/events, mm-hmm. from the ground up. So you can go to my website. And because we got more sponsors coming in, I'm actually dropping the ticket prices now. By tomorrow, they'll be $150.
Okay.
For 2 days. So $75 a day investment. And the beautiful thing is, when you buy a ticket, you're paying for a kid to come too. So for the adults that come, for the professionals, know that you're helping to underwrite the cost for
So
students.
every ticket sale
Helps underwrite the cost for students.
for students. I love that.
This is our first one, and for me, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of breaking even. If we make a little profit, good, but that goes into the education programs we run. But this is something that we'll be doing all over the country.
I love it. yobadevelopment.com/events.
Events, and then / from the ground up.
From the ground up. That's how you get your tickets, man. I want to see y'all there. And this is an all-day event? Or
all day, man.
What's
it's
the time?
Chock full from 8:30 to 5:30. So people, you're going to be awake anyway.
Yeah,
so
you might as well be
people
here
like,
learning.
yo, it's long. Yeah, and I got to shout out Layden Lewis Design Studio. You were in the space for the Black Men Brunch, but when you come to the space and how we're building it out, it's very, very thoughtful, right? This area we call the sanctuary. Right? A lot of times you go to conferences and everybody's sitting in rows.
Yeah.
This is more of a circle.
Okay.
So that, like the village.
I like that.
So that people could see each other.
I like
It's
that.
tables, not chairs, but tables, so everybody has a seat at the table. So it's very intentional, every aspect of it, from how we're designed. Working with New York City Parks, working with groups like Harlem Grow. So for the urban farmers, we got an area dedicated to that. We got a brother, Hermie Chestnut, who's in the commodities business, coming to speak and teach people how he's making millions of dollars selling soybeans and sugar and wheat around the world. Black dude from Queens. How many of us are in commodities? We don't know about that. Crystal Rosa, who is doing the mindfulness meditation, the growth. We start the days off with meditation. So it's part church, it's part wellness retreat, it's part theater, it's part school. It's giving people a holistic experience so that every aspect of who you are, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and then financially. We get to the money really on the second day, right? We end with the federal contracting business. Number one, a lot of us don't know about that, like the 8A program. New York alone, 30-something billion dollars in the state of New York alone last year was set aside through the SBA 8A program. For Black entrepreneurs, only 80 Black-owned companies apply for that shit.
Get the hell out of here.
Because we don't know about it.
I've never heard of that before a day in my life.
This is why we're doing this. And that's my job, to be the evangelist, to be the storyteller in the space, to make sure people are educated, while we could also do these deals, but we gotta lift as we climb. And so the reason we end the second day with federal contracting is because we start on the first day, we talk about redlining, and we talk about how federal policy fucked us up. But now I'm gonna show you how federal policy is also in place to look out for us. Same thing like the Minority Business Development Agency. Until President Biden, that agency was never codified as a legit permanent agency to drive Black business. It was set up during the Nixon administration. It's been there for 50 years.
Wow.
But it's one of those things like the redhead stepchild of the SBA. Well, maybe we're gonna give it some funding, maybe we won't. But nah, Donald Cravens, who's the undersecretary, is a brother, 50 years old, on a mission. Like, I wanna show Black people how we set up so we can win. One of the sisters that'll be there for the federal contract, her name is Stacy Mullison, has a company called Libra Management. She's 7 years in the 8A program. It's a 9-year runway that you're given by the government to become millionaires. It's our tax dollars. The United States government is the largest buyer and purchaser of goods and services in the world. So whether you need plants, you need some wall treatment, you need bottles, you need cleaning solution, the federal government pays for that shit. And we need to get some of that paper. So Stacy is there. She has international business that she's been able to develop through the Minority Business Development Agency that most people don't even know exists. So that's why they're there. Same thing like Corinne Apollon, who's the Chief Equity Officer for the Department of Education. Never existed before. David Banks put her in position. Why? Because New York City Department of Education has the largest budget of any public school system in the world.
Yep.
$38.9 billion a year. $12 billion of that is spent on goods and services outside of the classroom. Guess how much goes to black businesses?
Probably less than 2%.
Keep going.
Damn, less than that?
0.01%.
Crazy.
0.01%. We talking $12 million?
It's crazy. But there's opportunity.
There's opportunity, and that's why she's one of the keynotes. That's why I'm a vendor with DOE. That's why I encourage you to be a vendor with DOE. That's why everybody who's watching this, if you printing company, transportation, food, whatever it is that you do, you have an opportunity to make money with the same school system that spends our tax dollars educating our kids, that is 75% of the kids in public school system.
Yeah, I think this event is definitely very important. This activation,
Sorry, sir. Yeah.
this activation, let me be clear. This activation is very important because we don't know, like, I'm listening to you, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and these people are gonna be here. These are people who can make decisions.
Not only are they gonna be there, they are passionate about that. Every single person, I got 54 presenters. You made 55 when we met. Every single person is passionate about pouring into these kids, whether it's Martha Underwood, one of my partners. We're partners in a company called Prism, which you actually should know, especially for the folks you work with, because it's basically a digital vault.
Okay.
So when people have all their important papers and grandma died, you gotta look through all the shoe boxes under the bed in the attic. We can put them all in one spot, so easily transfer that wealth. A lot of times people will pass away and they have no next of kin to take on that asset. Instead of it going back to the bank, because we'll know where things are, because we work with banks and insurance companies, we can now hold those assets within our community as well. So, yeah, man, I mean, you know, I don't use, I'm pushing it now more on social because I've been busy actually doing the work. And, you know, I'm still occasionally on somebody's film set doing something. But most of my days is spent building this company, doing this work. This is Yoba Development's first official offering to the world. Like I said, everything we do is for high schools, colleges, and community. So this is our basically our coming out party saying, hey, this is how we showing up in the world, in this incredible space that we're building out very intentionally. Thank God for, you know, partners like Feldman Lumber and DeGaulle Visual Solutions and Turner Construction that have all come on board to say we're going to help you build out this vision that Layden Lewis articulated. I got the kid, I'll share you some information after. There's a young man named Randy Lopez who I met when he was 16. He's now 23. He's a student at Pratt. He did all that work, like the visuals when I sent it to you. That's Randy.
Wow.
That kid was designing shit like that when he was 16 years old.
Wow.
So being able to keep these young people in the mix.
And keep them activated.
Bro.
Keep them in motion. I love this. Yeah. Dr. Malik Yoba, y'all. Thank you for coming to the show, man. Coming to the studio.
It's a nice little setup you got here, bro.
Yeah, we are. Look, man, I'm trying to get into this film world. And doing documentaries. That's one of my goals. So when you send me a documentary, and I saw and I was impressed to hear you say that you edited this documentary, I said, damn, this is fire, right? So it really inspired me, like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this too. Like, and that's all I kept on saying to myself, bro. Like, yo, what I've been saying to Tukes, I've been telling, yo, I want to do documentaries, I want to do movies, because I feel as if, especially when you look at shows like $1 Million Listing and all these freaking reality shows, it's no representation of us. No. It's none.
On purpose, bro.
On purpose.
On purpose. Trust and believe there's shows that I've pitched. That's why. So the real estate mixtape, which you got a chance to see, people can,
which is fire.
Go to my website. There's access to it there, and it's purposely not done for streaming because I work in that business. And a friend of mine looked at it last year and go, "Yo, we should get this to Netflix." I was like, I work in that business. Like, I ain't trying to convince somebody that my shit is dope. I know it's dope. That's why I did it. And I say that humbly. What makes it dope is not me, it's the people that are in it.
Absolutely.
And yes, I took a cinematic approach. Yes, I did every music placement. Yes, I cut every bit of film in there because that is something else that I do, and I love storytelling from a director perspective. But I'm not trying to have it be canceled by anybody because someone tells me it ain't doing what it's supposed to do. This shit will live forever.
Yeah.
And I screen it at colleges. I screen it at high schools. I mean, shit, I screen it at banks. I was at BNY Mellon screening it. I'll be screening it at the African American Mayors Conference. I screen it at the Brooklyn Steam Center. We'll be screening it at the dock, at the activation. So a friend of mine told me she should send it to a friend at Netflix. And he's a brother who was in charge of documentaries. And I was like, yo, that ain't my goal, but let's see what he says. And he comes back and says, yo, I think it takes too long to get into the story in the first episode, blah, blah, people will switch. Really, bro? Thousands of people, tens of thousands at this point, because I've been screening all of 2022, the end of 2021, 2022. I've been all over the country with this shit. You gonna tell me that the impact I know it has, you watched it.
That's the first thing I said to you. I said, I love how you brought in old New York and showed us old New York, because we forget what New York used to look like. And I said to you, bro, I said, look, I grew up in Brooklyn. This reminded me of home. It brought me back to my childhood, and it's important that we still see these images, because we only see, expensive Brooklyn or expensive Harlem, but we don't see where it used to look
like for me. And that's what I used to look at, dreaming about putting buildings there as a kid. That's why it's there.
And that's why the buildings are there now, because somebody else saw that vision and they had the access to capital and the team building to be able to create what we see now. But I think personally, that was the goal of leading into the storytelling. Was like, you got to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. Especially when you broke down, I think it was episode 2, when you were showing like the slave trade, like black people were the real estate.
Bro, there was a slave market in New York for 200 years. You ain't learned that shit in school.
Nah, hell no. I never knew that until I learned it when I got out of school. It's crazy.
For 200 years in New York, right by Pine Street, by Wall Street. There were slaves who built the wall that became Wall Street. Trinity Church, the original Trinity Church. Slaves were loaned out to build that church. So Trinity Church owes us. I mean, they got billions of dollars in real estate. They're endowed heavily through real estate. So the information is important, and that's why it's directly to the people, because I ain't trying to have nobody,
nobody can, if it's yours, nobody can tell you shit.
And I've got scripted. I've got a show which will hit the world, set in the world of real estate. And same thing. And I'm going to a lot of these partners on the real estate side, to like Turner, Amazon has a housing equity fund that people don't know about. They're on the real estate side, and saying, y'all need to get into the content game so that we can own the IP and license it. And because I'm not trying to have, again, pitch it, nah.
Smart. Smart play.
I learned some things.
Look, I love the documentary. I think it's a smart play. Control your own destiny. Y'all go to the website and watch it. I thought it was brilliant, and it gave me inspiration. Like, yo, I can do this. Like, because I love the way it's following your journey of development.
Yeah, it's following my journey. Pursuing my first development deal in New York, and I took 7 young people of color, and those 7 young people, like that kid Von Thorpe, the nappy-head black kid, who'll be there at the activation. He was a busboy. He came up to my table, and I'm looking at this kid. I'm like, he's like, yo, man, I'm a rapper. I'm an actor. I make movies, blah, blah, blah. What you got? I'm looking at his tattoos, his nappy head, and I'm like, this kid will be perfect. He has no idea what I'm up to. But he said one thing that really made me know. He goes, I see I'm working on this documentary on real estate. He said, yeah, man, I know who Philip Payton is. I was like, how you know who Philip Payton is? Philip Payton was the first black developer in New York in 1904. He's the dude who moved black people from the South Street Seaport area, which is where everything was in New York, to Harlem when these brownstones were being built for German Jewish immigrants, and they couldn't fill them up. And so one of the owners of the building was like, I need you to help me. So he went down by Wall Street, South Street Seaport area, and was convinced black people to move uptown. That's how that happened. And he only lasted from 1904 to 1908. And he started as a janitor, working for a realtor. And because some of the white folks who were living there got upset, he bought the building, kicked all the white people out. And he set the stage for the Harlem Renaissance, which started 12 years later. And so, or 9 years later, 1919. But Vaughn knew about that. He knew about Philip Payton. I'm looking at this kid like, how the hell do you know about Philip Payton?
Yeah.
He said, oh, I was researching Bumpy Johnson. And so I found out about Philip Payton. I was like, here's my number, bro. Show up on this day. He showed up, and he ends up as a star of the doc.
That's dope. Yeah, he was heavily involved.
Yeah, I love that
Heavily
kid.
involved.
Love
Heavily
that
involved.
kid.
He was the one who was when I was saying earlier,
On the stoop
with his friends and educating them on it. And I said, yo, this is powerful. Because I'm looking at him, you wouldn't think he would have this type of information.
Yeah.
But you can't judge a book by its cover.
And that kid, as a result of doing that doc, he ended up getting his real estate license.
Dope. Yeah. I love this. Look, everybody, tell people how to tap in with you.
Malik Yoba. Everywhere you find people on social media, just me and my name. Except my Facebook got hacked, so that ain't me. It's some Asian dudes that stole my shit.
They stole your shit?
Stole my shit. But yeah, Twitter, Malik Yoba, and yeah, that's where you can find me. But you'll definitely find me May 12th and 13th at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, from the ground up, flipping the hood. Tickets are moving, so if you want to get down for the get down, please go to yobadevelopment.com/events, from the ground up. And know that your investment that you make in you is also investing in a young person. So we want the professionals there, we want the educators there, and because we got the lineup. So now,
the lineup is serious.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna hold you. I was looking through it, and as you speaking about what they do, I'm definitely going. He was like, because I asked her, I said, yo, what day you want me there? He said, nah. He was like, be there both days. Now just hearing it, I'm definitely there both days, because I need to know Donald Cravens. I need to get him on the show. I need to have conversations. Like half of these people on here, I'm like, they need to get on the show. I need to talk to them, because people need to be able to identify with the corporate side of real estate, because this is very
and the government side.
And the government side, most importantly, because we have a lot of talent in our community,
and we don't know where it's at.
And we don't know where it's at. So this could be the start of something beautiful. So I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you for tapping me in on this, my brother. Thank you for coming. Make sure you guys tap in with my guy Malik Yoba, man. I'm gonna put the links in the description of this video. This has been incredible. We never talked to nobody this long on the show.
How long we been here?
90 minutes now.
Word?
90 minutes.
What time is it?
It's 3 o'clock now.
Shit,
Yo, we've been ripping and running. It's been a great conversation. Time flies when you're having fun. You know what I'm saying? But yo, make sure you guys tap in with my guy Malik Yoba. I hope to see you guys on May 12th and May 13th at the activation. Links will be in the description. All right. This is Matt Garland, NMLS number 58700, but better known as MG the Mortgage Guy. Peace.
Yes.